Well, good morning. Quite a crowd for a Labour weekend, I must say. I was like thinking, easy, 5 or 6 people. No. Welcome. I don't know if you were listening to that song that was playing, The Reckless Love of God, reckless, what a word. I don't know if you think about God and his love, if you've ever thought of the word reckless, God's reckless love. The song said that it would climb mountains. God's love will climb mountains for you. God's love will kick down walls for you. God's love will run through Australian rugby league players for you. God's love will tackle Tongans for you. God's love is reckless, and it will do anything for you. That's the impression I get when I listen to that song. So I'm going to talk really briefly about love, and not that I'm qualified, but I was reading a bit about it, and I thought, what should I talk about Labour weekend? And I was going to talk about work, a theology of work. And as I was reading it, I was boring myself. So I thought, you know what? If I'm getting bored reading my own stuff, I should change the topic. So then I thought, well, it's not often that we just get to talk straight about love. We talk about all sorts of things. We have lots of sermon series, and they're great, and I love them. But when you read the Word and you get a handle and you start to understand what God is all about, love is a big deal. Love is a big deal. But here's the trick. If you think about love, there's so many different types. There's lots of different types of love. And I don't know what love means to you when you hear that word. Some people cringe when they hear the word love. Other people go, yeah, I know what that's like. I experienced it in my life. But here's the thing. I think essentially that every human being, if you were to ask, what does every human being need? If I was to ask you, what do you need? And you were to ask me what I need, I think when we boil it down, it's really the ability to be loved. I think every single person needs to be loved. And I think every single person needs to be able to give love. We all need to be loved, and we all need to be able to receive it, and we all need to be able to give it. A basic human need. I think of the boys that come through my home. So I do some caring stuff for naughty boys through Youth Horizons. I don't know if one of them is here today. I should have checked. But anyway, sorry, Shelford, if you're here. But and he's not naughty, actually. Shelford is the best boy I've ever had in my home. What they do is they send boys and they give you a whole list of reasons why these boys need to be on a behavioral track. And when you read, I've got into the habit of not reading it, right? So I used to read it, and then I would get so anxious because the stuff they get up to is so long. And then you start thinking about your safety, and then you start thinking about the safety of your house, and is he going to burn my house down? Is he going to? And what I have noticed with these boys actually is that aside from the long list of misdemeanors that they've been engaged in, the common thing is they have no dad. That's the first thing. They're common. They all have no dad, and dad is usually in the same place that all the dads are in, which is jail. And the role models that they have for men are all in jail too. And what I discover with these boys is that they just, actually what they want is to be loved. And they've never been loved, and they've never been able to give love properly because they don't know what it looks like to give love properly. So they have their versions of giving love, and it's pretty interesting. But they come into our place, and we try our best to love these boys and to give them an opportunity to love us back. When you hear the way I talk to them, you might not think I'm showing love, but I am. It's a little bit undercover. So the need to be loved and to give love in return. So this morning, I would like to share a love story with you. Who likes love stories? Nobody. Oh, we like love stories. You're lying. You're lying if you say you don't love a love story. I think there's something that resonates with everybody about a love story. And this love story is a parable that I just made up, all right? But it is based on, I think, what really happens in real experience. So are you ready for a love story? Okay. So this love story is based in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia. And this love story is about a young girl, a woman. She's beautiful. And like every person wants to find somebody who will love them and who they can love in return. I think we just talked about it. Every person wants this, and this was no different for this young woman. But Saudi Arabia is different to here. Like, you don't just sort of get to go out with somebody and get to know them, and if they're not great, you try someone else, and if they're not great, you try someone. That doesn't happen. And especially it doesn't happen in rural Saudi Arabia. It's worse there. What happens is that you get told who you're going to marry. It's an arranged marriage. And so this woman gets an arranged marriage, and she gets married off to an older guy who is actually a really good guy. Like, he's a good guy. He is like the talk of the town in terms of a standard for morality. You know what I mean? Like, if you want to know what's right or wrong, you just watch what this guy does, and then you'll know. Like, if you're a bit gray on what is the right thing to do and what is the wrong thing to do, you just go and talk to this guy, and he will just tell you what is right, and he'll tell you what is wrong. And so they marry her to this guy. He's a good guy. The problem is that he's so good that he tells her every day where she falls short. You know what I mean? Somebody just said that's not love, but this is what happens. He tells her every day. So she'll come home, and she's looking for love like anybody else. And he doesn't respond to her need. He just tells her how far she's falling short of the standards that he knows all about. And so she tries to live up. I don't know if anybody's been in a situation where you try to live up to the standards that somebody has set. And she struggles and she can't. And the problem with him is that he never does anything wrong. He's so good. He never does anything wrong. So there's never any conversation about the reality of struggle. There's never any conversation about what do you do when things go wrong. It's only just pointing out how far she's falling short of his standard. And after a few years of this once beautiful young woman starts to look twice her age. If you can imagine the weight of being in a relationship where every day you're told how far you're falling short of a required standard. And she resigns herself to this life where she's told every day, you're not good enough. This life where she's told every day, you're not pretty enough. This life where she's told every day, if only you could do this better, you'd be better. Until one day, she goes to the laundromat, like she often does, to do the washing. And she starts going to the laundromat a couple of years earlier at different times because she's sick of putting on a pretense about how great things are at home. So she goes at lunchtime when no other woman is there, and she just like takes her laundry and she does her laundry and she goes home. This particular day, she goes to the laundromat and she meets, to her huge surprise, especially in Saudi Arabia, there's a guy at the laundromat. Now, I think Saudi Arabia is a bit like Samoa. Guys don't do laundromat, you know. And she's like, actually, that's not true. My dad's great in the laundry. I do my own laundry often. Not all the time, but when I... Sorry, babe. But when Karen's not there. And so there's a guy at the laundromat. And this guy at the laundromat sees her. He sees her. I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where you feel unseen. You know, you can be like that. I spent a lot of my life feeling like that, just unseen. As a matter of fact, we were going through old photos, and my daughters are finding photos for my mum and dad because they're having how many years, Dad? Like over 50 years sort of wedding thing, celebration. I think that deserves a clap because, man, I think that deserves a clap for my mum. But, 50 years. And so my daughters are going through all the old photos. And Hannah came up to me, I think it was Hannah, and she said, Dad, see all these photos of you when you were little? And I'm like, yeah. She says, there's not one that we can find of you smiling. There's not one. And I remember that. I remember feeling distinctly that I didn't really matter. And so if you know what that feels like, then you'll know what it feels like when somebody comes along and makes you feel like you matter. And this laundromat guy makes her feel like she matters. He sees her for the first time. And then each consecutive visit backwards and forwards to the laundromat, it becomes like a drug. Like if I want to feel my value, the only place I can feel that is when I go to the laundromat and this guy tells me. And you know what he tells her? He doesn't tell her what she is right now. He tells her what he believes she can be, but he tells her as if she is right now. Do you know what I mean? So he says, you are whatever it is, and you can, and whatever it is, and you do, and you can, and you have so much, whatever it is, and she has none of that, but he's telling her as if she has it right now. Imagine that. And if you were her, what would you do? She falls in love with the laundromat guy. She starts falling in love with the laundromat guy. And there's a problem, because in Saudi Arabia, if you fall in love with somebody other than who you're married to, you get stoned to death. Stoned as in with stones, not, stone with stones, rocks. You get stoned to death, you know. And then they'll find the laundromat guy, and they'll string him up. So she has a dilemma. She's married by arrangement to this old guy who's a good guy, but he doesn't know how to love her. And she's fallen in love with this laundromat guy who's not her husband, but she loves him. So what does she do? If the law says this, there's only two ways that you can get, young lady, there's only two ways that you can get with the love of your life. Number one, either he dies. If he dies, then you're released from the law, and you can connect with this dude from the laundromat and have your life, the best life, but he has to die first. That's one way. So wait till he dies, or bring about his death, I don't know. But if you do that, you're breaking another law and you'll get stoned to death. Or he is unfaithful. Like if he's unfaithful to her and gets with someone else, then she's released from the law. And she's free to do as she pleases. But the thing is, he'll never be unfaithful because he doesn't care. And he's indifferent. And he doesn't know how to give love. He only knows how to tell people where they're going wrong. So she's in a dilemma. What happens? What happens? Well, let me reveal to you the characters in this parable. The husband with whom the marriage was arranged is the law. The law. Romans chapter 7 describes the law as good. But it describes the law as unable to love. It's not there for the purpose of loving, the old law. The laundromat guy is none other than Jesus. And maybe you heard some similarities in my parable to the woman at the well. And the woman is you and me. We often refer to as the church or the bride, etc., etc. Romans chapter 7 puts it like this. Or do you not know, brethren, for I am speaking to those who know the law, that the law has jurisdiction over a person as long as he or she lives. For the married woman is bound by law to her husband while he is living. But if her husband dies, she is released from the law concerning the husband. So then, if while her husband is living, she is joined to the laundromat guy, she shall be called an adulteress. But if her husband dies, she is free from the law, so that she is not an adulteress, though she is joined to another man. So I want to fast forward the story because it has a very happy ending. The old husband does die, thereby freeing up the woman to marry the love of her life, the laundromat guy. Huh? Wonderful. Here's the question. How did it happen? How did it happen? And for the answer, we go to Colossians chapter 2, verse 14, which says this. Blotting out the handwriting of ordinances. And by the way, I want to be clear. The handwriting of ordinances, I have no doubt, is referring to at least the Ten Commandments. At least the Ten Commandments. And I say that because there is nowhere in the Bible where you will find the Jewish law being universal to all people. But this passage is to all people. Blotting out the handwriting of ordinances that was against us, which was contrary to us, and took it out of the way, nailing it to the cross. There is nothing in Jewish law that God would even bother nailing to a cross. It has no power. There's no power in it. When Paul talks about law in chapter 7, he actually mentions the seventh commandment. He's talking about the same law. Blotting out the handwriting of ordinances that was against us. Let me explain this as best I can using the parable. So this is what happens. The laundromat guy goes to the woman's home, grabs the indifferent husband, and hauls him outside the city to a hill called Calvary. He declares love for the woman to the mob, and while he is being nailed to the cross, by association, the old husband is also nailed to the cross with the laundromat guy, Jesus. And that evening, the laundromat guy dies, but so does the old husband. And now the once beautiful woman is released from the law. And we find her at the tomb of the laundromat guy, weeping because he's gone. Yes, she's free from the law, but what good is that if the love of her life is also gone? So she weeps, and in deep anguish, she asks who she thinks is the caretaker of the cemetery. Tell me, where is he? I want to be where he is. Tell me, where is he? He simply says her name, and immediately she recognizes the voice of the one she loves. Love, in this narrative, overcomes death. Love overcomes death. So what's the good news? Are you ready? We were given away in an arranged marriage to the law, which came from God, by the way. We were given away in an arranged marriage through deception of Adam and Eve to the law. We discovered very quickly that we couldn't live up to the high standards required by the law, which God made. We discovered that even if we did live up to the expectation we'd never be loved by the law because the old law is indifferent. It doesn't care about you. The old law doesn't love you. It just tells you and it just shows you how far you are from the standard. In the middle of this, we met Jesus at the laundromat. The purpose of the old law was to drive us to Jesus. I was sharing this with some students the other day, and they said, but God made the law. Yes, he did. To drive us to Jesus. We never appreciate good love if we don't know the bad. Jesus knows how to love, and everything changes. For the first time, we meet someone who knows our dirty washing and loves us anyway. Has anybody experienced a love like that? They know your dirty washing and they love you anyway. Jesus annihilates our arranged marriage to the old guy by taking the old law to the cross, dying with it, releasing us from the obligations to the old husband. 3 days later, 3 days later, Jesus proves that love is stronger than death when he comes to the woman and simply speaks her name. See, some of us are living as if we're still married to the old guy. Many of us feel the weight of guilt and shame the old man continually reminds us of. And so when we come to a place like this to worship, we can't because we think we are still bound to the old law. We still try to compare ourselves to its standards and we fall short every time. Before I realized that the old guy was dead, I couldn't worship with my whole heart. I used to look at people raising their hands and lifting their heads, and I would think, oh, are they showing off? What are they up to? What are they doing? I don't know if anyone else was like that. But I used to think, man, these guys are, why are they so, why don't they just calm down, kick back, and just, be cool? That was before, when I was still married to the old law. But then I met the laundromat guy. And he told me. And I read and I believed that I was released from that. I didn't realize it. I didn't know. I thought I was still bound to it. He told me that the old law died when he died. And when love overcame death, the old law was transformed into the new law of love from which there is no restriction. From which there is no restriction. And here's the thing. Old husbands can die and be transformed into new husbands. Old husbands can die and be transformed into new husbands who know how to give and receive love. All thanks to the laundromat guy. The new husband now allows you to love freely. The new husband allows you to worship with outstretched arms, hands held high, voices screaming out praises. And the good news in all of this, you've been married to the new law for over 2,000 years. You've been married. It's still an arranged marriage. It was arranged because you weren't there 2,000 years ago. You had nothing to do with it. But the marriage was arranged so that you're now no longer a slave to the old, but you are now married and attached to the new. And if you knew that, and if you were awake to that, when you worship, you would worship. Because it's not about you. It's all about the laundromat guy and what he did. Jesus loves you. Jesus loves you. His love, it's ferocious, like a hurricane. It's like reckless. It's not a controlled kind of cookie cutter love that maybe we've all gotten used to watching movies. It's way different to that. We bend under the weight of his love. His love is heavy. And it's all-encompassing. And we bend under the weight of it. His affection for you is great. His affection for you is great. Do you know how adored you are? Do you know? And if you knew, it'd change your life. His love is bigger than an ocean that we all drown in, whether you realize it or not, because it's arranged. It's already been arranged for you to be loved like this. You had nothing to do with it. You bring nothing to the party. The laundromat guy just loves you. And when you encounter the laundromat guy, your heart will beat violently under your chest. It will. Just like when you encounter a love that sees you, your heart beats violently under your chest. I think this is a great Bible text for Labor Weekend. Matthew chapter 11 says this: "Come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden." Different words up on the screen. I'm using the old words. Come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden. Means this: come to me, all of you who have been working hard to find what you've always been looking for, to be loved and to be able to love in return. If you've been looking for that, come to me, and I will give you rest. Other versions say, come and take a break with me, come on a road trip with me, and I will show you the unforced rhythms of grace. His love is amazing. His love is awesome.